Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going over API requests and how we make those as mobile developers. We're going to be using a tool called Postman. If you've never made an API request before, or you're wondering how other developers do it, stay tuned and we'll learn together. So for this project, the first thing we'll need is Postman. If you don't have it, it's a free app. Go ahead, download it, and get signed up for an account. And whenever you do that, feel free to come back to this video and we'll pick back up. All right, now I'm going to assume that you've got the app downloaded, and so we will create our first collection here, and we'll just call it API test. There we go. Now this is just a folder. A collection is a folder in Postman, and it holds a bunch of requests. Now we don't know what we want to call this just yet, but let's go ahead and use the JSON type of code website that we used earlier for another demo. And so we will bring this website up here. There we go. And as you can see, we've already scrolled down to the section where the resources are listed out. And so let's go ahead and see if we can get a list of posts first. So it says that there are several routes here that we can access. So let's first try to get a list of posts. So we will call this new request get posts. And it will be a get request. We went back to the type of code website and grabbed the URL, so let's just paste it in here. And then we will say /posts. All right, now we don't have anything else filled out. We don't have any parameters, authorization. It looks like it comes with a few headers by default, but no body, nothing like that. Now this get request is one of the HTTP verbs that we've talked about in other videos. As you can see, this is a list of the different verbs that we can use. Get is pretty common, post is common, put and patch are typically very common, and so is delete. I don't see head or options being used very frequently, but again, these are your most common options up here up top. So this is saying that we will get resources from the /post endpoint at this website. So let's go ahead and let's send that request. And as you can see, we've got a list of all the post objects down here. Nice. So what are some other things we could do? We could get, it looks like a single post. So if we do /post/1, let's try that. And we will go to /1 to get a single post. And let's send that request. Nice, we've got just a single post object. It looks like a post has comments. So let's see if we can get the comments off of a post. So that's /post/1/comments. And we will send that. And there we go. We've got a list of comments and along with some other fake data of who wrote it. Nice. Now let's skip down to creating a post. So usually these post objects here are again just fake data, but they are using the post HTTP verb. So let's go ahead and let's do that next. So let's say that we want to create a post, and we will change this to the post type, and let's send it and see what happens. It says 201 created. So even with nothing passed, we get a created status. Now, if you're not familiar with these statuses, that's okay. These are called response statuses. And if you just Google HTTP response statuses, you can get a list of codes from the MDN docs. That's the Mozilla Developer Network. Those are the people that work on things like Firefox. We've got our list of response status codes here. And if we scroll down, we can see that 201 means it was created, and it was a successful response. It indicates that the request has led to the creation of a resource. Nice. So this status code is commonly sent as a result of a post, again using the post HTTP verb request. Nice. So what are some other things we could do? Usually you want to put, put is generally used if you want to transform an entire object. In other words, if you want to replace an entire object in the database, Usually we use a put for that, and a patch is if you only want to change part of that object. Say, for example, you had a large user object and you only wanted to update the email, you would probably use a patch object. But if we had in our post, for example, if we wanted to change something about a post and we wanted to change all of the data all at once, like the body of the post changed, the title of the post changed, the author changed, the creation date changed, all of those things changed, we would probably use a put for that scenario. But let's go ahead, let's go back over to Postman and let's see if we can do a put on a post. So 404 not found, that's because we just went to the /posts endpoint, and that was to edit a specific post object, as we can see here. So 404, again, going back to the MDN docs, we can see that a 404 means that the server could not find the requested resource. In other words, the page isn't there. You've probably seen that just browsing around the internet, but that's what that actually means. So going back over to our code, we will update this to put for the first post in our object here. Nice, and it says that it did the post, and it says our ID is 1. Very cool. Now, what are some other things that we can do with this? So as we've gone through and done some coding, we've changed a lot of this. It doesn't get a post anymore. For example, now this one puts a post. And so let's put this back to get all posts. There we go. And let's go ahead and name this get all posts. Get all posts. There we go. And then we'll click save. And then we can hover over the name here in our collection, and we can say that we want to duplicate this, and that'll save us a little bit of typing. And so if we want to get a certain post, then we can change this endpoint to be /1 like we have there. And now we can save that. Great. And if we want to duplicate this again, we could go ahead and we could say that we want to create a post. So let's change this and let's call this create a post. There we go. And we will save that. Let's give it a shot and see if that works. 404 not found. That is because our post should only go to the posts endpoint. So let's go ahead and let's change this back to the all post endpoint. There we go. Save. And let's give that a shot. Nice. It created a post. And then we had another one for a put request on a post. So let's add this as a put. And a put only worked on a single post. There we go. And so let's call this update part of a post. There we go. There we are. And let's save that. And let's give it a shot. Nice. We were able to update part of a post. That's according to our 200 OK status response. And let's duplicate this again. Let's create one for patch. Let's call this update an entire post. And we'll get rid of the word copy here. Save it and give it a shot. There we go. We were able to update an entire post. Very cool. And what were some other options? We've got delete. So delete is another common one. So let's go ahead and let's say that we want to, again, duplicate our request here. And we will change this to delete. And then we will say this is delete a post. And we'll save it. And then let's send it and give it a shot. There we go. We successfully deleted our post. And now, as you can see, that object is empty. Very cool. Now, what if we wanted to have a different URL for every environment? For example, right now, this URL is the only one that we know of, but maybe in your circumstance, you have a URL for test or a QA environment. And so we can come over to our environments tab. And now these are just other environments that I've created for other projects. Well, let's create a new one. And let's call this API test. And we will make this part of our test environment. There we go. And we will add a new variable. And since our URL may change, I like to create a base URL. And so let's do that. Let's create a base URL. And the initial value will be the JSON placeholder.typeofcode.com. There we are. And then we can just click off that and it'll automatically fill in the current value. Nice. Now, this doesn't actually look like any kind of special thing for a test environment. So, and again, this varies by whatever system you're using, but maybe in our test environment, maybe there is a /test on this. And so let's go ahead and let's make sure that we get that on both of those. There we go. And then let's go ahead and duplicate this. And let's create one for a QA environment. There we are. And get rid of the word copy. Nice. And so now it's not test, now it's /QA. There we go. And then let's do a and let's save this change. And then we'll go back and we'll duplicate this one more time. And we will call this one prod for production, since we want this to be our production URL. Then we'll take this link off here. There we go. And take that one off and we can save that. Nice. Now, environments and environment variables are a really useful feature of Postman. So now we can go back over to our collection, and instead of having this specific variable or this specific text hard-coded in all of our URLs, we can replace that with two brackets and say base URL. Now, as you can see, it turned red and it says there's not one because we haven't selected our environment. So let's go back up here on our drop-down and let's say we want to use our production API test URL. Nice. As you can see, it turned orange and it shows us the exact URL that we've got here. Now, we probably don't want to have a slash in our base URL. So let's go back and let's fix that for the production environment. So let's go back and click here, and we can take this out, and we can take this out. Now the reason we didn't want that, moving back over to our collection, we have a slash right here for posts, and if our base URL already included a slash, then whenever we tried to do this, it would give us our base URL, which ends in a slash, and then our /post, so there would be two slashes in the URL, which isn't valid. So let's go ahead and let's save this. Let's go ahead and give this a shot and see if this still gives us all of our posts. Nice, and as we can see, we got a 200 status code, and we were still able to get all of our posts. And that's one way that we could help clean up some of this URL stuff and be able to have it to work in different environments. Very cool. Now, if, for example, we wanted to create a post with a certain body, let's go ahead and let's take this content here and let's go back to our create a post. If we wanted to pass specific data, then we would go over here and we could say that this is raw data as JSON. And then we could paste in our JSON data here. Now, I'm not sure how well our sample API actually works, but let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can do that. So let's create an object with a title of S, a body of Q, and let's just see how that works. Send. Nice. So it says it created our object with a title of S and a body of Q. Very cool. And it looks like it gave it its own unique ID, so that's interesting. I wonder if we could get the post that we created by that. So let's go back to get a certain post. Let's say we wanted to get post 101. What would we get? Not found. Okay, good to know. So it looks like the sample API doesn't actually store any of them. It just returns the correct responses to make it look like it stored them. Nice. Now you may be wondering, why do I need to know any of this information as a mobile developer? Well, as a mobile developer, you will eventually, even if you don't now, you'll eventually build apps that make network requests. And so it's always very helpful to know how this stuff works. If you aren't building the backend servers directly, it's good to be able to communicate with the folks who are building the backend servers and say, hey, I would really love this data in this shape and in this object in this way, and be able to get the data that you need and have that communication with the backend developers, the API developers, so that your apps work as flawlessly and smoothly as possible. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And if this video was valuable to you, let me know in the comments. And if it wasn't, let me know what would be more valuable to you. Just be nice about it, that's all I ask. Thanks, and have a great day.